You open your banking app, rent is gone, groceries are gone, subscriptions quietly ate their share. And that treat yourself coffee? Yeah, that's staring back at you too. You're 20-something, maybe 30-something, and somehow it feels like you're doing everything right, and still not getting ahead. Meanwhile, billionaires are flying to space. Governments are spending trillions, and some countries keep getting richer, while others stay stuck. If you've ever looked at your life and thought, what is this system and why does it feel rigged? That's not just vibes, that's economics. And today I'm going to show you the real story of money, power, and why your life feels like a constant trade-off, in a way that finally makes sense. This is not a boring textbook lecture with graphs and dead white guys on slides. In the next 20 to 25 minutes, I'll walk you through 7 short, punchy chapters, like a thriller that actually matters to your wallet and your future. Here's the roadmap. 1. Scarcity. Why your life is one big trade-off. 2. Capitalism versus communism. Who gets to own the money machine? 3. Markets versus planning. Freedom, control, and chaos. 4. Supply and demand. The invisible force running your life. 5. Taxes and free stuff. What you're really paying for. 6. Big thinkers. The ideas, secretly shaping your paycheck. 7. Institutions. The real reason some countries are rich. By the end, you'll see the system clearly enough to stop feeling crazy and start playing the game on purpose. Stay to the end, because in the last part, I'll show you the one factor economists say is the biggest reason some countries and some people actually get ahead. Part 1. Scarcity. Why you're always losing something. Let's start with the part nobody can escape: scarcity. Economics is basically the study of one painful sentence. We have unlimited wants and limited resources. You want a bunch of things at the same time: travel, a nicer phone, nights out, savings, maybe starting something of your own. But you don't have unlimited money, time, energy, or mental bandwidth. So every time you say yes to one thing, you're secretly saying no to something else. Economists have a name for this: opportunity cost, the value of the next best thing you had to give up. Buy the new phone? You might be giving up a weekend trip. Work overtime. You might be giving up time with people you care about. Crash on the couch and scroll for 2 hours? You might be giving up 2 hours of skill building you say you don't have time for. And it's not just you. Zoom out to the level of a country. Governments have the same problem, just with bigger numbers. More money for healthcare, or for roads, better schools, or lower taxes, more defense, or more social support. Every decision they make creates a shadow. Everything they didn't choose. That shadow is also opportunity cost, just at national scale. Here's the mindset shift that quietly changes your life. Once you see every choice as a trade-off, you stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "Is this the best thing I can do with what I have?" That's economics, and that's your life. Now, if life is one big game of what do we do with limited resources, the next question is, who gets to own the stuff that makes money in the first place? Part 2. Capitalism versus communism. Who owns the money machine? Imagine you own an apartment building, or a factory, or a popular app. You don't have to work inside it. You can hire people, rent it out, and money flows to you whether you're grinding or asleep. That building, that software, that factory, economists call this the means of production. Basically, the stuff that creates value and income. Capitalism says, let private individuals own that stuff. If you own it and it does well, you reap the rewards. That gives people a crazy strong incentive to innovate, hustle, and build new things. Historically, capitalism has been unbelievably good at creating wealth, driving new technology, and raising living standards. Think of everything from conveyor belts to smartphones to delivery apps. You didn't get those from a committee. You got those from people chasing profit. But there's a cost. In a capitalist system, the people who own the means of production can end up incredibly rich, while the people who work for them may still live paycheck to paycheck. Inequality grows. Power concentrates. Whole groups feel like disposable cogs in someone else's profit engine. That's where communism steps in, at least in theory. Communists argue it's fundamentally unfair for a tiny group to live off ownership, while everyone else sells their time just to survive. Their solution: make the means of production public or state-owned, so no one can get rich purely from ownership of what everyone else needs. In practice, real-world communist systems tried to wipe out private ownership at the top and ended up with a different kind of concentration, one where the state holds most of the power and wealth. So here's the tension: capitalism, insane innovation, massive wealth creation, and serious inequality. Communism in practice, attempts at equality, but often stagnation, shortages, and a different elite in charge. And every modern fight about billionaires, eat the rich, wealth taxes, minimum wage, they all orbit one core question: should the tools that create wealth belong to individuals or to society as a whole? But even once you decide who owns the stuff, you still have three brutal questions left. What do we produce? How do we produce it? And who gets it? That takes us to the next big clash. Part 3. Markets versus planning. Freedom or control? There are two main ways societies have tried to answer those questions. Option 1. Markets. Let the chaos decide. This is capitalism in action. No single boss at the top telling everyone what to do. Instead, entrepreneurs guess what people want. They risk their own money. They compete like crazy. Prices adjust based on what people actually buy. If something sells out, prices rise. More producers jump in and supply increases. If something flops, it disappears. Prices are like the economy's nervous system, sending signals. We need more of this. Stop making that. During the pandemic, when mass demand exploded, prices rose, and suddenly your cousin's friend was sewing masks in their living room. That's markets responding, fast without a central order. But markets have a dark side. They boom and crash. Perfectly good food can be thrown away while people go hungry. There can be empty luxury apartments next to people sleeping on the street, because markets chase profit, not justice. Option 2. Central planning. One brain runs it all. Here, a central authority, usually the state, decides what gets produced, how much, and at what price. In theory, this avoids waste and crises. No overproduction, no underproduction, just rational planning. In reality, think Soviet Union. You get bureaucracy, slow reactions, and shelves that are missing the stuff people actually want. No one at the top can process the insane amount of local information that markets handle through prices. So, you get a different kind of mismatch. Demand here, supply there, and a big gap in between. The truth: most countries today are mixed economies. They use markets for flexibility and innovation, and government planning for infrastructure, social safety nets, and crisis response. The real fight is not market or planning. It's how much of each, how much freedom, how much control. But underneath both systems, there's one simple force that quietly runs almost everything: supply and demand. Part 4. Supply and demand. The invisible force running your life. At the heart of markets is the most important idea in basic economics: supply and demand. Here's the fast version. Demand: how much people want something at different prices. Supply: how much producers are willing to make at different prices. When demand goes up and supply stays the same, prices usually rise. When supply goes up and demand doesn't, prices usually fall. So far, so simple. But here's where it starts to mess with your actual life. This isn't just about products. The salary for your job? That's supply and demand for your skills. What degrees universities push? That's demand from students and employers. The content your favorite platform shoves in your face? That's demand for whatever gets the most clicks. The algorithm doesn't love or hate you. It just follows the money and attention. If trash gets views, you get more trash. If outrage gets clicks, you get more outrage. The market is incredibly efficient at giving people what they signal they want with their wallets and their time, not what they say they want in theory. Sometimes that's amazing. Cheaper food, better tech, higher quality of life. Sometimes it's junk food for your body, brain, and soul. Understanding supply and demand doesn't magically fix the system, but it does something powerful. You stop being a passive consumer of whatever just shows up and start becoming a conscious participant. You realize every click, every purchase, every subscription is a tiny vote for the kind of world you're going to live in. And speaking of paying for things, let's talk about the part everybody hates, but nobody escapes. There are two main ways societies have tried to answer. Option 1, markets. Let the chaos decide. This is capitalism in action. No single boss at the top telling everyone what to do. Instead, entrepreneurs guess what people want. They risk their own money. They compete like crazy. Prices adjust based on what people actually buy. If something sells out, prices rise, more producers jump in, and supply increases. If something flops, it disappears. Prices are like the economy's nervous system, sending signals. We need more of this. Stop making that. During the pandemic, when mask demand exploded, prices rose. And suddenly, your cousin's friend was sewing masks in their living room. That's markets responding, fast, without a central order. But markets have a dark side. They boom and crash. Perfectly good food can be thrown away while people go hungry. There can be empty luxury apartments next to people sleeping on the street because markets chase profit, not justice. Option 2, central planning. One brain runs it all. Here, a central authority, usually the state, decides what gets produced, how much, at what price. In theory, this avoids waste and crises. No overproduction, no underproduction, just rational planning. In reality, think Soviet Union. You get bureaucracy, slow reactions, and shelves that are missing the stuff people actually want. No one at the top can process the insane amount of local info that markets handle through prices. So, you get a different kind of mismatch. Demand here, supply there, and a big gap in between. The truth? Most countries today are mixed economies. They use markets for flexibility and innovation, and government planning for infrastructure, social safety nets, and crisis response. The real fight is not market or planning. It's how much of each, how much freedom, how much control. But underneath both systems, there's one simple force that quietly runs almost everything: supply and demand. Part 5. Taxes. Free stuff, and what government is actually for. Let's be honest. Taxes feel like theft when you're staring at your paycheck. You see this big chunk missing and think, that's my money, but zoom out. How do you think we get roads and bridges, public schools, emergency services, clean water systems, public parks? None of that appears out of nowhere. Free healthcare, paid with taxes. Free education, paid with taxes. Even in systems that advertise stuff as free, like the Soviet Union, nothing was truly free. Workers were often paid less than the value they produced, prices were manipulated, and the difference funded the state. That's just a hidden tax. So the real question isn't, should we have taxes? You will pay somehow. through explicit taxes, hidden taxes, higher prices, or worse services. The real question is, are we getting good value for what we're paying? Good government turns tax money into public goods. Stuff everyone benefits from, but no single person could build alone. National defense, roads, basic research, justice systems, and more. Bad or corrupt government turns tax money into waste, vanity projects, or private pockets. That's why politically aware citizens matter. Because if you don't understand what you're actually paying for, it's really easy for someone to sell you a story that sounds good and cost you way more later. Now, all these arguments about markets, taxes, and systems didn't come out of nowhere. They came from real people with big ideas. Ideas that still shape your life today. Part 6. The Great Economic Thinkers. The ideas running the world. Let's run through a lightning round of some of the biggest economic thinkers whose ideas still shape policy fights today. Adam Smith, in the 1700s, saw that when people chase their own self-interest in markets, under the right rules, it can lead to more prosperity for everyone. He loved private property, free trade, and the division of labor. Government, in his view, should mostly protect rights and provide basics. Then, get out of the way. Karl Marx looked at capitalism and saw exploitation. Workers create more value than they're paid. Owners pocket the difference. That's profit. He predicted that this tension would eventually cause capitalism to collapse and be replaced by communism. John Maynard Keynes watched the Great Depression and said, "Markets don't always fix themselves in time. In a crash, when everyone cuts back at the same time, you get a downward spiral." His answer: government should step in, spend money, cut taxes, build things, to keep people working and the economy moving. The Austrian and Chicago school economists pushed back and said, "Careful, markets are smarter than central planners. Government interference can create bigger problems." They argued for minimal government, low regulation, and letting prices send the signals. The new institutionalists like Acemoglu and Robinson said, "You're all missing something, the rules of the game." How well a country does depends a lot on its institutions, its laws, norms, and how power is distributed. You don't need to memorize these names. What matters is this: almost every political argument you see about taxes, welfare, regulation, trade, the rich, the poor, is basically a remix of these old debates. And that brings us to the final, brutal, but hopeful question. Why are some countries rich and others stuck in poverty? Part 7. Institutions. The one thing that actually makes countries rich. For a long time, people tried to explain rich versus poor countries with simple stories. It's geography. It's culture. It's just bad leaders. But economists Darren Acemoglu and James Robinson came to a different conclusion in their book, Why Nations Fail. The biggest difference is institutions, the rules of the game. They divide institutions into two big types: inclusive institutions. These protect property rights, have relatively fair courts, allow people to start businesses, enable political participation, and encourage innovation. These systems let millions of ordinary people create, invest, and keep a meaningful share of what they build. Extractive institutions. Here, power and wealth are concentrated in the hands of a small elite. Laws are bent to protect that elite. Corruption is common. People can't trust the system. These systems let a few get rich by extracting from everyone else. And they fight hard to keep things that way. Their favorite example? North Korea versus South Korea. Same people, same history up to a point, same culture, same geography. But one ended up with extremely extractive institutions. The other built more inclusive ones. The result? In one generation, you get two completely different worlds. It's a brutal message, but also a hopeful one. Your fate is not written in your country's soil or your culture's DNA. It's deeply shaped by the quality of the rules and by whether people are allowed to build, own, and participate. And here's where it comes back to you. You can't personally redesign your country's institutions tomorrow, but you can do 3 things. First, understand the game you're in. Once you see scarcity, trade-offs, markets, power, and institutions clearly, you stop blaming yourself for everything and start seeing the structure. Second, make better micro-choices inside that game. Choose skills with real demand. Spend and invest with intention, not impulse. Vote, support, and speak up for rules that are more inclusive, not more extractive. Third, stop being an easy target. When someone tries to sell you simple answers, it's all the rich, or it's all the poor, or just work harder, you'll know the truth is more complex. Here's the punchline. Economics isn't about boring graphs. It's the story of human choices under pressure, the fight over who gets to own and decide, and the rules that determine whether millions of people get a shot or stay stuck. You just leveled up. Now you can look at your paycheck, your debt, your country's news, and instead of just feeling stressed or angry, you can say, I see the game. I know the trade-offs. I know the story behind this. If this helped you see the world a little clearer, do 2 things. Hit like so this reaches more people who feel like the system is broken but can't explain why. And drop a comment. Which part hit you the hardest? Scarcity, capitalism versus communism, markets versus planning, or institutions? If you want a whole series where we dive deeper into each chapter with real-life examples from your job, your city, and your bank account, type deep dive in the comments so I know you're serious. You've got the map now. Use it. Talk about it. Build something with it.